Everyone thinks they know what motivation is. They've got an intuitive understanding, particularly teachers, because they are highly motivated people. They all have self-motivation, large amounts of self-motivation, because they've achieved well, particularly in learning. And they have an intuitive understanding of motivation, which is what we're trying to build on. And they've been thinking intuitively about motivation all their career. But I like to give people a challenge, a motivational challenge in a sense, and one of the first things I do is ask them to write down what motivation is. And there's usually quite a quick consensus about that. It's a drive, it's an internal drive or an external drive, it's a kind of, it's an enthusiasm, it's an energy, it's wanting to do something. And invariably from a group of teachers you'll get a very positive take on motivation, which is fine. But I then have to say to them, well, let's stop and think. That's only half the story. And they look at me puzzled and I say, well, let's think about this. And I say, what's the essence of all these descriptions you've just given me? And eventually someone will say, yeah, they're all positive. And then someone will mention the word fear. I'll say, right, what's that about? And again, people will say, oh yeah, there's fear of failure. Which is very interesting, because that then gets you into the whole notion of, so motivation isn't all positive, which we tend to think it is. And we have to realise that there's a dark side and a light side to motivation. And most people, teachers, are on the light side, but the children who have got problems or who are hard to engage are living in the dark side. And what does that mean? That means issues like fear of failure, that children are, and again I say to schools quite challengingly, there isn't one child in your school who's not motivated. There isn't one. They're all motivated. Some of them are just motivated to wind you up or impress the peer group or avoid work. The brain is always motivated. The brain is always looking to adapt to its environment. So it's got to be motivated. There's just distorted or restricted motivations. And it's these motives that give us an insight into children's behaviour, which is what this is all about. And that's why motivation is beyond discipline. Discipline is just a very basic emotional reaction of teachers to children's behaviour. And you just look at the behaviour. And the behaviour is just the iceberg. What we want to get at is the underlying motives, the personality that's organising these motives. But what are these motives? What's the point of that? That gives us more opportunities to tune into children and then respond appropriately with appropriate optimal learning environments, but also the teaching hooks, which is what this is all about. There are these general fundamental principles that are dead simple, but why is it complicated? Or put it another way, why do we have such a challenge to motivate children if it was so simple?